All right, so I'm joined today by Nahum Vizakis, an amazing background in bodybuilding and like a lot of success in bodybuilding and a lot of success on the spiritual path. And usually these things don't always go together. So I'm excited to talk today and just hear about your journey and like bringing in the material, the spiritual, how you ended up to this point now. And welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, Jimmy. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. So yeah, just where did your story take you from the world of bodybuilding, where maybe when you started in that you weren't so into spirituality, and then something happened where you got into spirituality? Is that true?
Yes, it's absolutely correct. So, my first bodybuilding competition was actually in Iraq in 2009. I was deployed as an EOD tech, and the first couple of months, I was waiting for a team member to get over there. So, I had some time on my hands, and somebody approached me in the gym and asked me if I wanted to compete. I was like, "Yeah, why not? I got time." So, I ended up winning that show, the overall, and I kind of got the bug. I was like, "Wow, I'm actually really good at this." So I started competing in bodybuilding much more heavily after I got out of the military, and I was winning shows left and right. And about 4 years into it, I moved from Texas, where I was stationed, to Arizona. I started going to ASU, and I was killing shows at the local level, and then I wanted to up my game and go to the national level. But when I got there, man, the competition was just on a whole different level. And in order to be able to hang and gain more size and stuff, I had to start like taking a lot of performance enhancing drugs that started really messing with my health. And I decided, after my last show in 2013, I it was just too much, and I had a bit of an identity crisis, right? I went through a lot of stuff when I was in Iraq, and I had that was really my first spiritual awakening. But my first spiritual awakening was more like just losing my identity, realizing that I wasn't really who I thought I was, or the things that I was passionate about weren't really what I was truly passionate about. So I kind of latched on to the identity of bodybuilding because I would like maybe feel good about myself, right? But ultimately, I ended up like feeding into the external gratification and just a lot of narcissistic type of personality traits. And I got humbled by the universe, as the universe normally will, right? My I'm a Capricorn, so Saturn is my ruling planet, and I have Saturn conjunct the North Node. So it let me get away with some things for a while, but eventually, when I was 33, 34, started cracking down. And that's when I ended up going to massage school in 2014. And when I went to massage school, that was about the same time I started studying astrology and learning more about myself. At the time, I was doing like personal development courses, Tony Robbins kind of stuff, NLP, techniques. I didn't know anything about plant medicine at that time. And when I went to massage school, one of the first things they do is teach you how to like slow down and get into your beingness, right? And at that time, I was just go, 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 go. I was taking Adderall and Ambien to sleep, and I was kind of a mess, man. And I didn't realize it until I had this massive SER in massage school. Do you know what SER is?
No.
Somato emotional release. So,
Oh,
we store emotions in our physical tissue. And when we're in fight or flight constantly, we don't know how to slow down. We're in a sympathetic dominant fight or flight state. So when you finally learn how to slow down, the nervous system wants to recalibrate and regulate itself. So it looked like really my first SDR was about 2 hours. It looked like I was having a seizure. And after I went through that, I was very confused. My frequency changed. I didn't want to eat the same foods. I didn't want to bodybuild anymore. I didn't want to be with my girlfriend anymore. Like I was very confused, and I didn't understand what this, now that I can say, this birthing process really was. And so I really started digging deep into understanding my consciousness, which is actually where astrology came into play. Like understanding, my Chiron energy, the Saturn conjunct the North Node, and the whole gamut of how the universe tests me, and understanding the archetypal energies of these planets really was the first step in helping me fully understand really who I was at a deeper level, and how I was, my ego was in charge, and I was kind of I was really good at lying to myself. And later on, it took me years to figure out, but yeah, I just had really deep abandonment and rejection issues, mommy and daddy issues, right? So when after I went through that process, I started working on people, and I was doing some really great work. And in a couple months into it, remember I was working on this woman in Las Vegas where I was living, and I got this visual imprint in my mind of a little girl getting into a really bad car accident. So I've had a few of these happen up until that point, but I didn't say anything because I thought it was nuts. Like, okay, it's my mind just kind of playing tricks on me, right? But it kept getting louder and louder. So I stopped for a second and I asked her, like, were you ever in a car accident? And she looked at me with these like, holy crap, how the hell did you know that? I was just thinking about that. And at that time, it made me realize, wow, like maybe there's something to this. So soon after that is when I actually had another client that I was working on. And I was like, hey, I know of this ayahuasca ceremony going on here in a couple of weeks. Do you want to go? And I had never heard of it before, but I just started, Googling it and researching it. And I had done psychedelics before, like, LSD and mushrooms, but, I realized that, wow, this is the real deal. Like, you have to fully surrender. And I don't think I've ever really fully surrendered before. So I'm grateful that the first practitioner that I worked with was very, very well versed. He was actually in a Netflix documentary, one of the first ones that came out. He's a powerful, powerful guy, this guy Metza. And man, when I first sat and drank that, first cup of ayahuasca, I was terrified. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was like, oh my God, am I going to have a bad trip? Because my mind's in a bad place. And suddenly this warm feeling just washed over me. And I can say that that's the first time in my life that I felt the frequency of love.
Mm.
And when I felt that, I realized that everything before that point in my life was attachment or was something other than love. Because I didn't feel safe enough in my life to even know what love felt like. So once I felt that feeling, and and ayahuasca was just showing me and being gentle and kind. Of course, that was the first time. After that, she, kicked my ass pretty good. But I welcomed it because now, like, I'm understanding that, wow, there's a whole different world out there or in here that I didn't even know existed or understood. And my consciousness just really ate that shit up, man. I felt so empowered and inspired and ready to just go deeper and do much more healing work. So after that first ceremony, I just started. I was going like every 2 3 weeks for I ended up going like 8 years for like every two to 4 weeks ish. I did well over 1,000 ceremonies in the period of time up until now. But soon after I did, I think it was the third ceremony that I did, I saw these people walking around with these black dots, on their shoulders and in chest and back. I was like, "Ooh, what's that?" And my friend was like, "Oh, that's combo." And I was like, "Ooh, sign me up." I didn't even ask questions. I was like, "Let's go. I want to go deeper. I want to feel this out. I want to clean my body. I want to clean my vessel." So I went and I explored combo pretty soon after that, and combo is not fun at all. Combo is a very powerful, powerful medicine, but it's 30 minutes of just pure hell, really. And there is no real happy, fun psychedelic trip. It's just a purgative. But I realized my body really, really needed it, right? And it really helps to enhance all your senses. And they call it nature's vaccine, right? So I think when I was a kid, I got, all those jabs and shots and so it really cleaned my body out really well. And I started working with combo extensively. I still do actually. Combo is one of the main medicines I work with. And it was with those two medicines for up until about 2020, those two medicines exclusively. Started working with ketamine around that time too. But ketamine was only the only synthetic medicine that I really work with, and that has powers in it of themselves. But I prefer to work with the natural stuff, right? Like the stuff that comes from the earth. I feel if you have too much, like ketamine can give you like a blissed out state, and it can help in certain circumstances. But whenever you're getting ready to do combo or bufo or ayahuasca or iboga, like this fear comes up in you, like, oh, am I really ready? Right? Like it makes you start to think and wonder, what's going to happen, and you have to let go of that fear. And I feel like that is sort of a testament to what true medicine really is, right? It's no quick, easy fix. It's you got to do the work. You got to be willing to face yourself. You got to be willing to a part of yourself to die that is not serving your highest good. So in 2020, I decided that I want to go a little bit deeper. I was like, it seemed like ayahuasca and combo sped up my karma, and I was learning a lot, especially about relationships. But I felt like I needed to go deeper, especially at the time I was going through a kind of a gnarly custody battle, and that just hit me in a whole new different way, right? And so I found this person that was serving iboga, and we started communicating. I started microdosing soon after that. It was early 2021 where I finally sat with iboga, and that was a whole different class in and of itself. Iboga is, in my opinion, the most powerful medicine out there. It's very good for addicts, but also the journey is not necessarily fun. But I'll tell you what, you that will heal virtually anything. And it's kind of more like a drill sergeant energy. So what I got from that, because I ended up doing four flood doses in a row. I got that ayahuasca really helped me to face my mother wound, because the spirit of ayahuasca is very feminine. It's like the cosmic mother. And iboga is very masculine, almost like a drill sergeant kind of energy. You go into it and it's just truth, just harsh, straightforward, no sugarcoating. Like, this is what you're doing, this is how you're doing it. And also can clear out past life stuff. And after I did those four flood doses, everything in my life changed. In fact, a lot of really bad stuff happened until a lot of really good stuff started happening. But it was about 2 years of time where, like, I had two very close people to me die, and relationships just blew up my face. But the relationships weren't really good for me anyways. I was really forced to look at myself. Well, not forced. I chose to go into it, right? But I really had to look deep at my belief systems, my self-limiting beliefs, and not to mention back in 2020 when we had the Saturn and Pluto conjunction, right? That was on the cusp of my ninth and 10th house. So I was looking at all the leftover belief systems that were keeping me from living my best self, right? So I had to clear out and let all this karmic garbage go so I could learn these lessons. And then I kind of hibernated for about a year, right? I moved to the other side of the country. I was living actually in LA at the time, and I moved over to Florida. And all these things, these ideas of things that I want to do for a living, they would build up and then crumble, and build up and then crumble. And I just stopped. I stopped everything for a while, and I just slowed down, because my nature, right? I have my sun conjunct Mars, so my nature is just hyper masculine, go go go, and I really had to really focus on my on bringing in my feminine nature to be able to balance out that energy. And my Venus is in Scorpio, right? So it's in detriment. And also my Mercury is in Sagittarius, which is also in detriment. So I didn't really know how to receive. I didn't really know how to express a healthy feminine nature to myself. Especially when I was competing and I was, doing a fair amount of performance enhancing drugs. I was like hypersexual, and I was, hyper masculine. And that stuff got me just into a lot of trouble. So when I finally learned how to be a more healthy man, I came to the opportunity to have another relationship that was actually healthy for me. And it took me a while to learn how to actually be in a relationship and then say, arguments or disagreements are inevitable in a relationship. But instead of running away from it, I was able to sit and choose the love over choosing the hyper independence, because hyper independence is also a overly masculine trait,
Yeah.
right? And I had to lose everything in order to be able to appreciate the support that I had and receive that support in a way where I was so vulnerable. And also vulnerability is also a feminine trait, right? And when we're in that fight or flight world, we don't really know how to be vulnerable or allow that vulnerability to be okay. And I feel like a lot of men, especially right now, like, women are a little bit ahead of the power curve when it comes to emotional awareness. And I think men now are finally starting to make that move up, because men just cannot, that whole hustle culture, it's dying. It cannot keep going. And I feel like plant medicines, not the only way, but definitely a powerful way to be able to sit with yourself and really get the honest truth that can bypass or awaken the recognition of how we sabotage ourselves in our ego, right? The inner victim, the inner saboteur, the inner wounded child. so many people in society right now, we have an epidemic of fathers not being, in the family's lives, like children that are growing up just so wounded. Health issues are a major, major problem. The whole entire health industry. And through all these processes that I went through, I've created also biohacking tools, fitness, nutrition methods, and plant medicine. Now, plant medicine isn't for everybody, right? But the good thing is nowadays we have peptides, we have red light therapy, we have infrared saunas, we have cold plunges, we have HOCAT and ozone therapies, all these different things that can still do a lot of the work to heal the physical body. But the most important thing is, and I see a lot of people neglecting this that are trying to heal from things like cancer and autoimmune diseases and even autism and whatnot, they focus on healing the body, but they don't correspond emotional healing with the physiological healing, which there's always, 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 always an emotional correspondence to a physiological wound or imbalance, right? So that's really, especially in my book, The Indigo Flame, I go really deep into understanding what the emotional correspondence to the physiological imbalance is from my learned lessons and from my experiences. Everything I've learned, I've been self-taught, right? Like I've gone to school and yeah, I spent 10 years in the military and I learned a lot of stuff from there, but I honestly, all the stuff that I use is stuff that I've learned through myself or through others that have also been through these experiences that have had to do the same thing. And I feel like nowadays, some of the greatest practitioners, healers, shamans, even doctors, they've had to go through healing and figuring out their own ways of healing their stuff. And once they have, now they can apply all that knowledge and all that intellect and all that wisdom into their own personal experience. And that's what really creates that true healing. Because honestly, from what I've seen, especially being a veteran with PTSD, right? If someone else has PTSD, they've gone through some kind of traumatic experience, and if you haven't gone through that, they're not going to listen to you. How could you? How could they? Right?
Yeah.
So you have to, and especially in this new energy that we're living in, really, you have to be able to connect emotionally and energetically in order for someone to feel safe. And feeling safe is the most important aspect to the true healing process, right?
Yeah.
This new level, like the world does not feel safe right now. So we have to create the safety within ourselves. And when we're able to do that, that speaks louder than any certification, any kind of license, any kind of even other experience because that's truth at its core, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I really love being able to have this diverse experience. And also, I'm definitely not one to say that I'm right all the time. I try to help people to see, okay, well, what does this make you feel? All right. And what's your past? What's your experience? And help teach them how to read their own energy so that they can come to their own conclusions. You just give them the tools, right? And then, of course, if people want to dive deep and really go into the medicine space, that's also an incredible tool as well. But I feel that this is just a segue. Eventually, we're going to come into a place, and you can, feel free to speak on this with your knowledge as well, that, in the future, and I think pretty soon in the future, frequency and vibration is going to be all we need to heal, right? Because we're gaining so much more sensitivity. We're opening the heart center so much more to where the ego is, at least the dysfunctional parts of the ego are becoming called out and very fragile.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And something I respect about your path and bodybuilders in general is they tend to be people who go into extreme scenarios, like extreme dieting, extreme gain weighting, gait, weight gaining,
Right,
and
Kane?
weight loss. And it's very extreme. Like people who don't know much about bodybuilding, I had some mentors in that world, and I only went far enough to know like I see a lot of people having heart issues when they get older and, a lot of potential risks of this. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't think I want to go on that path. But what I really respect and like what I saw, and it was like, okay, these people are showing us what's possible with the human body. And with
We're the original biohackers, man.
yeah, totally. And now it's like you've used that same sort of exploring the edges of society and health and wellness into the newer modern frontiers now in psychedelics and spirituality. And So I think I'm really honored to hear and receive your wisdom and share your gift with my audience here of this the kind of extremes that you've explored. And right now, in the Vedic perspective, we have Ketu in Leo. So this is, you see things like the No Kings protest happening. That's
Yeah, right.
and like this sense of a lot of people like wondering, who am I? What am I going to do with, like, how is AI going to replace all these jobs, or how's it going to affect society? Uh,
Right.
I think there's a lot of infiltration of, like, we left, a lot of people left the TVs and the media, and like we moved more online, and now all the media is online,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all like just that same frequency of fear is amplified more and more now everywhere. And
Hmm.
I talked to a lot of people, and I've experienced this more in recent years of like just more tendency towards the sympathetic nervous system, more tendency towards anxiety and fear and uncertainty. And the media is like the marketing of it all has like been extremely effective over the last few years since
Unfortunately.
2020. And so I'm just curious your thoughts on all of this of like how we can navigate that, because as you said in your story, you reached a point where you were in the constant sympathetic. And I think a lot of people, I think that's kind of normal in the Western world. It's like
It
even
is,
when you
man.
take a break, it's like you're watching a show or something. It's so activating, or, you know.
100%. And so I'll start with the bodybuilding because I've noticed that in the generations, like my generation of bodybuilding was, like 10 years ago. And I was even using peptides back then in 2011, 2012, right? But I'm noticing that a lot of the younger generation now, they're using 2 to 3 times more gear and more stuff to try to gain that edge. And it's very dangerous, especially this trend with trenbolone acetate. That stuff is so, it destroys your endocrine system, and also it hyper strengthens your ego. And I see even a lot of kids, like these 18, 19, even 16, 17-year-old kids trying to jump on gear and get online just so they can go viral. And which is creating this like hyper narcissist sort of atmosphere, out there in the world. And eventually it creates disconnection from self, right? Because you're spending all your time trying to get out there into the world, but then you're not actually spending any time with anybody. Like relationships and connection has almost become secondary in this world. And I encourage everyone out there, right, especially if you're in the fitness world, nobody should be taking any kind of performance enhancing drugs before 25, right? Like your frontal lobe is not fully developed until right around 25, not to mention your bones aren't finished growing, your endocrine system isn't finished, fully stabilizing. So a lot of times what will happen is people will start to form their identity around their muscle, and their muscle is getting all this external validation. So you're literally living your life for external validation, and that never lasts forever. And when you finally have to get off, or when you start having health issues, or when you just can't take it anymore, that external validation is gone. And now what are you going to do? Now you're going to be depressed. Your dopamine is going to be all over the place. And if you do trend, it's highly unlikely that your natural testosterone is never going to come back. And we already have a epidemic of hormone issues in this country, at least, right? With all these, especially if you're not eating, like if you not, you literally have to have a PhD these days to know what to eat, what not to eat, right? And people that are super hardcore on the vegan diet or the carnivore diet or whatever fad diet is going on out there right now, though, not diet is not a one-way street, right? Like you have to get your gut checked. It should be individuated because everybody's gut is different, right? So, like you said, all that propaganda and all like the mind control stuff is so insidious and so powerful. But the good thing is now, like podcasts like these are starting to get a lot more recognition because people are speaking out and showing people, don't make the same mistake I did. So for that younger generation, don't make the same mistake I did. You can still. I actually didn't even start using performance enhancing drugs until I was 31, and I trained for about 14 years before that. So I maximized my potential. And it's very important to do that, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's like the hard
so
work and discipline that
yes, you have to
even,
establish the behavior patterns. of eating right, of playing around with different diets and nutrition, see what works, of learning how to connect the mind muscle connection, learning how to push when you're younger. You can push and push and push, and your body is designed to be able to adapt and recover, right?
Yeah.
So you want to build that like natural foundation before you step into anything, outside of that. But again, this is a lot of this is trauma based. A lot of people that have these mommy and daddy issues, right? They revert to this external validation because they didn't get any growing up. And unfortunately, that trauma is going to carry over. And it's going to be 10 times harder when you've already done this potentially permanent damage to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So don't do that, guys, please. But I also think too, in 5, 10 years, especially with the direction AI is going, AI is a tool, and we can use that tool for our advantage, or we can let it destroy us, right? But I also think, the North Node being in Aquarius right now, it's all about the decentralization, the individuation of consciousness. But there's so much unknown because we're coming from a place where Saturn was really the ruler of the age, right?
Yeah.
Where it was very structured, controlled dynamics of government, of systems in place. Now that we're seeing all the corruption and all the crap, it's almost like we're being offered freedom, but we don't know what to do with the freedom. So this is where, at least for me, the principles that I learned through bodybuilding about structure, right? About testing your limits and seeing like how far you can go and how far you shouldn't go, about recovery and about disciplining your mind to push yourself and be in alignment with yourself and in your needs and in your wants. If you're really passionate about it, then you create that structure. And then when you go out into your life, the unknown doesn't scare you much anymore because now you have a passion, you know what you want, at least to a certain extent, right? And I think all human beings, and you can give me your thoughts on this. I kind of feel like I've lived like 5 lifetimes in this life,
Yeah.
right? Like we're moving through karmic lessons and energy so fast that the Aquarian nature that is coming to the forefront because we're now, basically birthed into the Aquarian age is learning how to individuate yourself in this society. People are looking for authenticity, and the highest vibration of Aquarius really is authenticity, and it's in individuation, right? That's how we can connect to people and we can see how, hey, there's another way to do it. Like I believe that all these industries, the health care or the sick maintenance industry, right?
Yeah.
Government industries, even school and education, the financial system, all of these things are going to collapse because they're all corrupt.
Yeah.
And corruption cannot live in this new frequency. But now I believe that there's a split going on, and the split is, are you choosing love or are you choosing fear? And all emotional aspects split into those two categories. Fear is hate, anger, frustration, irritation, shame, guilt, all those things, right? And then love is joy, peace, you know, happiness, all
Yeah.
those things are going in that direction. And we can choose. But also, we have to realize that we have the responsibility to choose for ourselves. And everybody that's alive right now, first of all, we all chose to be here, right? We all chose our parents. We all chose this time because this is a very exciting time to be alive. We have the ability to be able to ascend and to be able to come to this next higher vibrational level of being a human being. And once we do, and I've also noticed this too, that our clair gifts, the clairaudience, clairsentience, all these things are starting to come online as we activate our DNA. And that all comes through facing your fear. But facing your fear does not mean conflict, like inner conflict either. Facing your fear means looking at it, having the courage to look at it, having the courage to be vulnerable, and having the courage to go into it, whether you go into it with someone else or yourself, and be like, I'm not okay, or I need help and support, or I need to understand what's going on, right? And when we genuinely and authentically, reach out to people like that, the right people, situations, circumstances will come into our lives to be able to help us grow and evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this generation, the last few generations, it's like accelerated tremendously. I'm doing some genealogy stuff, like trying to find my paternal lineage and everything. And
Ah,
just like reading obituaries and stuff about these people just like 100, 150 years ago. And it was so much the norm back then. Like, oh, if you could work on a farm, you're fine. And like you got somewhere to work, you got a family, you know, you provided for. Maybe
yeah.
you'll live like 50 to 80 years and then that's it. You have a bunch of kids and they carry it on. Uh, but it's such an interesting time now. It's like that's kind of what's been happening for maybe thousands of years, something like
Yeah,
that. And now it's like such a different world just in the last like couple decades, really. It's like it's a bit disorienting, really, of like where's the society going? And then there's like such strong forces like this of the media and the fear and the corruption. And then there's equally strong forces, but maybe not as organized in like the spiritual world
very
of
true.
you know, small gatherings, small communities, things like this. But the fear structures are very like well structured
They
and
are.
ingrained in society. And yeah, and then the Vedic perspective, we have the Pluto return. Well, that's for everyone. Pluto return for the U.S.
Yeah,
So like it's very common that at 250 years, a society has some sort of downfall or restructuring or around 300 years at most. So we're in that range of like all the systems, everyone knows they're corrupt. And it's like, it's
yeah.
like everyone feels kind of powerless to change it. But it's like, how many more generations could that really keep going now when it's like so widely known? And I think people like you are bringing this kind of message to the world and like people like us listening to this, doing this kind of work. You know, some people call it like light workers or something like that. You could say that,
Mhm.
but it's like I think it's very more important than ever that we align our frequencies to what we want to be creating. And like I'm very like, sometimes I'll wake up feeling things that are like, I know that's not mine. Like I know I'm feeling
Yeah.
something in the collective or something, or maybe from somebody I'm working with. And just the frequency of fear has just been so strong in the last couple of years. And isolation, disconnection, and then like people like marrying their AI chatbot. And like,
That's
uh,
weird, man.
yeah,
That's
like
weird.
some guy, I think, I don't know where, but there's some story of that, and he like left his wife. It's like, oh no, here we
I
go.
saw that. Yeah, that's but that's a testament to how people like this generation of women, right? They've been taught like a lot of them are gold diggers or have alternative, intentions that are not exactly the highest. It's really hard to find a partner that you can trust these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like the emotional vulnerability is like, I guess there's more like men, women, and men under 25 who are virgins, like, and it's like they're just not
Wow.
having the intimacy and the. Someone can fact check me on that, but something like that stat. Just like you grow up with a phone in your hand and like that's your way of connecting. It's kind of crazy to imagine growing up with that stuff. So
You know,
it's an
I think
interesting world.
I think that that's going to start to. I think we're going to go back to more tribalism, not in the old sense, but in a new way, reconnect. Like because it's so abundant, because it's so right there in your face, people are intentionally starting to slow down, which is actually what I really love about, ceremonies. Because that gives you a chance. You put your phone away for a couple days, right? I mean, you might have to schedule it out, but especially like executive CEOs, people that are really busy in life, right? They're taking the time to really slow down and take care of themselves. But also, I want to know what do you think about the United States is coming back into its Uranus return. I think it's going to officially start in 2027. But Uranus and Pluto are going to be trine, and they're both going to be sextile to Neptune. How do you feel how that kind of energy is going to play out?
Well, I'm not sure about the timing with Vedic. It might be a little bit off, but maybe close. But yeah, for sure, you know, that's the big thing I've researched is the Pluto return, and that it's still from Vedic has 15 more years, so 2040. And yeah, so with that aspect, it's like probably a lot of disillusionment, a lot of structures falling, and people needing to like. I think there's already this sort of some sort of this sort of celebrity that we used to have like in the 90s 2000s of like people are in movies and they're like these big celebrities and it's kind of this person on the other side of the screen that's unattainable. Now
Yeah,
there's more of this potential or like I think the number one thing that kids want to be now is an influencer on YouTube. So,
Yeah,
so it's like everyone has access to that potential, and like they don't, it's kind of like a slot machine. You don't know if you're going to become a famous viral celebrity.
right.
And but then I think that has a lot of the issues of illusion with Neptune and like the fantasy and idealism. And I'm already seeing like the online world is just becoming more and more crowded. So there's like people are not standing out as much just for doing something like, whereas like 10, 15 years ago, like, it's easier to stand out online. And now it's like, it's just kind of like real life almost, where there's just so many people there and people finding their niches that I think there's potential negative side of people kind of getting disillusioned and caught in their ego and fantasy. Potential positive side, though, of more of a utopian kind of reality where we could move towards like breaking the old structures and creating a reality and manifesting what we want and frequency, like you're saying. I see there's more and more even sort of conservative people like opening to this idea of like, just playing the frequency of the heart of like 432 hertz, and like that can actually create measurable things we can use empirical science to validate now. And it's like, okay, they're starting to get people on board with frequency, and but that's been around forever. But so I see more of this kind of movement towards energy,
Yeah.
intuition, manifestation, imagination, creating our reality. And like I think that'll be more and more proven with like quantum physics, and probably something we haven't discovered yet.
Oh yeah. I think the more that we can balance out our central nervous system, because intuition, while in a fight or flight state, I feel what I've noticed is that's what really creates the delusion
Yeah.
meant through Neptune, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of pushing us. What I also know what happens is that now that when people are stuck in that space, their mind can't shut off.
Yeah.
It's literally stuck there. So there's a deeper correlation between the mental and thought processes and this in the nervous system, because Uranus represents the nervous system, right? And being in this new space, it's hitting the nervous system so much harder because we're now so much more sensitive to energy as our heart continues to open up, right? And I think that's going to be a major factor in what we choose between, especially as technology advances, which I believe is going to start to advance major, fast, newer ways here in the next few years. But those kind of people are going to go more towards like being a cyborg or implanting technology into their body and brain and wanting to be like superhuman through artificial means, as opposed to going within, facing all the difficult stuff and activating the natural gifts that are in our consciousness. Our consciousness is the greatest technology that we have never understood.
Yeah.
And because there's not as much, I would say, scientific data on understanding these capacities that consciousness can operate from when we activate our DNA, that people aren't so excited about it because they don't understand it as much. So again, another really important message, that I'd say to your viewers is do the inner work, because our natural God-given gifts in our consciousness as it's activating and as our heart opens up and our DNA activates, our gifts are going to far surpass any AI or any kind of artificial technology. Not to mention, I kind of feel like that's demonic, a little bit. When we start to mess with our consciousness through technology, then how do you really know when you're living and when you die?
Hmm.
Right? When you like 10 years from now, I don't know, have you ever seen the show Altered Carbon?
No.
It's on Netflix. I don't watch Netflix much, but that was one show I'd recommend watching. They actually download consciousness onto this thing they call a stack, and they implant it into your spine, so they can literally take their consciousness out and put it in a different body.
Wow.
And there's this one class of people that are elites that literally just do it for hundreds of years, and they just stay alive, through creating these new bodies, artificially implant their consciousness, and then they have a process where they integrate it, and boom, they keep going. And we don't want a society like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of dystopian, and It's interesting though, because it's kind of like a faster version of what we do to people that have kids, and it takes like 18
Yeah,
years to implant your consciousness to some degree to them, but it's a version of it. Um,
good
but yeah,
point.
it's the artificial intelligence like moving more and more towards artificial and away from natural. And I think there's like there's going to be equal rise in like people wanting to be off their phone, be off the grid, off the internet
Yeah,
as much.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, more and more important that people really hone in on that frequency that they want to be creating. And it sounds like that's part of what your book is about. Is that right?
100%. Being able to identify the physical, emotional, and spiritual correspondence to any imbalances in the mind or body, and looking to see how whatever it is that you're going on in life that's difficult or even good, everything is our teacher. I just happen to have a lot of really bad experiences in the first half of my life that had to teach me some hard lessons. But even people I know that are incredibly successful are having to learn new ways to be able to, to create success because people can have a lot of money, but they're not feeling successful. They're not feeling fulfilled. Because either way, when your heart's opening up, now, like if you have the means, you want to be of service more, right? But a lot of people are so stuck and the way that their life is or has been, right? You gain a certain level of comfort with that. And comfort is where dreams go to die. So you can have a ton of money, but still feel miserable. I met a lot of people like that, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
So at the very end of the day, at the bottom line is to learn how to be vulnerable and take care of self and identify what circumstances, what people, what job, what situations in your life are stealing your energy. Like we all have, I think most people have at least some level of parasitic activity going on in their life, whether it's self-driven or received through their other people, places, and things. And right now is a major time, a major factor to be able to identify that, especially as we come closer to the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, right?
Yeah.
That is really, I feel, the ending and new beginning of consciousness. Like where, so this next, really this eclipse season right now is all about all this stuff's coming up in our face, like big time. And with the addition to Three Eye Atlas, now I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what that is. I don't think anybody really knows, but I can tell you that I can feel it in the energy. There's something different. I can't put my finger on it, but I can feel that there's something that is speeding up the process of uh, empathically feeling stuff in my body in correspondence to the outside world. It's almost like an old mission for my life purpose has kind of become obsolete a little bit. And now, but I don't really fully have the new mission details in my consciousness so that we're in this like in between space.
Yeah.
And that in between space, even though I've been in many of them, it doesn't matter how many times, it's still super uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? So we have to really get comfortable with the not knowing. And look, at the end of the day, fear is, in my opinion, our greatest teacher. And when we learn how to embrace it and look at it with a childlike curiosity, as opposed to like, oh, Jesus, not this again, right? When we can really embrace it, like, what is this trying to teach me? Or what is this feeling, signaling to me? And we learn how to navigate those signalings through doing the inner work, which really, at the very core, the inner work is about slowing down. You can do that with breath work. You can do that vibroacoustics. You can do it with plant medicine. You can do it even with exercise and working out, nutrition, getting your life structured. All these things will help, right? But it has to, right now, I feel like everybody kind of has to be more self-focused, not necessarily selfish, right? But the inner work is not really an option at this point. We have to take time to do the inner work so that we can be the best version of ourselves going out there in the world for our loved ones, for our business, right? Because for everyone, in some way, shape, or form, there's a new beginning that started. But the new beginning is still forming. It's like all the puzzle pieces have not been put into place yet,
Right. And
right?
you've talked about in other interviews I've heard of like kind of getting stuck in the sympathetic nervous system state. And I've experienced that more in recent years. I was much better about balancing it. And like, I think there's just an overall energy in the collective too of like more sympathetic state and more
Yeah.
inputs. But I guess what would you say to somebody who might be listening who's like, yeah, I know I want to relax, but I don't have time. They have kids, work, stress, like they feel urgency frequently, even if their schedule is open, like this kind of energy. How did you manage to start to transition and to be able to turn that off at times?
Well, first, I don't think it's getting stronger. I think that we're just becoming more aware of it.
Mm,
It's always been there, right? But we didn't have the energy that's kind of uprooting it. So now it's being thrown in our face. So again, for me, like the number one thing that I personally use in order to be able to slow my mind down, number one, I got to avoid caffeine because caffeine, of course, will stimulate that. But I use hape. Hape
mhm.
is a shamanic medicine. It's a mapacho tobacco base, and you blow it up your nose, and it instantly just clears your mind and grounds your energy. But the big thing is grounding. I met so many people that when they're in that constant thought process, that their energy is just it's like a balloon that's just floating, right?
Yeah.
They're not grounded in their body, and that's also there's corresponding hip issues, right? And like even like lower body issues. So emotionally speaking, you have to ground yourself. Now, there's many ways to do that. Hoppe is my number one way, but I love laying on my vibroacoustic sound lounge. The vibration that when you lay on it, it helps to biohack the nervous system back into alignment about 90% quicker. And sometimes even I'll even sleep on it, right?
Nice.
So then I utilize natural means to help me sleep. I struggled with insomnia ever since I got back from Iraq. I use high dose melatonin treatments. I've used peptides like DSIP, deep sleep inducing peptide. Uh, I've used um, I've used gummies, but I don't really like taking gummies because then I feel kind of hungover the next day, and I don't like that feeling.
Mm.
And I try glycine. Sometimes I create a combination, but really I'd say the most effective thing that I've worked with is high dose melatonin. When I say high dose, for my body weight, it's based on your body weight, but I take about 500 milligrams as a suppository. So everyone's a little bit different, and you have to connect to. I have a source that I go through. So if anybody's interested in that, you can contact me, and I'll put you in touch with my person. But there's a doctor out in St. Pete, Florida, Dr. John Lawrence. He's incredibly. He works a lot with Ben Greenfield, a lot of biohackers out there. But he created this theory, and I've also worked with another German nuclear biologist that is really big into it too. And I read their book, and I was like, you know what, I'll try it. Why not? And it really works incredibly. So it's kind of like any other medicine. When you take a super high dose of something, it has a completely different effect in the body, and it acts like a super hormone, similar to how vitamin D or cholesterol works in the body,
Right.
right? So it actually helps to neutralize and balance out everything, every hormone, every system in the body. And I've also noticed big time, it really opens up the glymphatic system, which allows the brain to kind of defrag and clean out, gets all those amyloid plaques out there.
Yeah. Okay, throughout the day, is there like something in the middle of the day you might do to like take a break or reset?
Sometimes it depends on how I feel and how I can schedule it, right?
Mm.
So really, the way that I've learned to live my life, I used to try to schedule things out weeks or months in advance. For me, life doesn't work like that anymore, especially as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I try to schedule things like so I'm not super crazy packed and busy to allow some wiggle room for if I'm feeling like kind of tired. But sometimes I'll take a nap in the middle of the day or I'll do a little bit of breath work. But my big thing is I have to go to the gym at least 6 times a week. Even if I'm not lifting weights, I'll do cardio and stretch, or I'll go sit in the sauna. I do a lot of infrared sauna and like cold plunges, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've learned at this point in my life that I can kind of feel it coming on if I'm starting to get like burnt out a little bit. Then I'll make sure I take a day or two and I won't schedule anything, and I'll just take that time to just chill, relax, just eat good healthy food, and just not not interact too much with the world, just kind of chill. So
Yeah.
it really this is a very individual thing because everybody
Yeah.
has their own way that they deal with life. So you have to kind of like really observe honestly how you feel, what you're doing, and look at it from like a 30,000 foot perspective and see where you can start, right? And what you're struggling with. Then once you do that, you can start to structure it and like schedule things out.
Have you ever heard of TILO? TILO?
No, no, what's up?
I'm in South America now, and it's like super common
Oh,
here, and I never heard of it before. It's just
okay.
like a tea. You can buy it anywhere here, but I've never seen it in the States. It's very powerful though. You just use two little leaves. Like you sell it in a bag with like hundreds of leaves, but you just need two
Yeah.
little leaves, and you drink it as a tea. You let it boil for 5 minutes, drink it as a tea, and it has like a really strong sedative effect. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, it's awesome. And it's good for digestion, basically all the sympathetic or all the parasympathetic nervous system stuff.
Well, I'd love to
And
try that, man.
yeah, everyone in South America knows about it, but yeah, I'd never heard about it till I was here.
I've been in South America a few times, and did you know that they have whole hospitals down there that are only plants?
Oh wow.
That literally tens of thousands of plants, and you can combine these different plants that can literally heal anything. Why we don't have one in the United States? Well, I know why we don't, because it doesn't
Yeah.
make Big Pharma any money. But hopefully, at some point, we'll have something like that.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of similar teas they have here that I hadn't seen before. It's just people are more connected to it. It's a lot less materialism here, and so there's
Yeah.
less of that sort of like we need a new product to sell for this issue. It's we have an herb for it. So that's how it
They,
should be.
I'll tell you what, South America, they're doing some things right, and
Yeah,
I think that we can take a lot of lessons from them and apply it up here. Like ayahuasca and these other plant medicines have been a good start, but there's so much more down there that we're not utilizing.
yeah,
But I also know a lot of people that have been going down there and coming back and taking the different ideas and gifts and lessons with them. And also too, that world is growing very quickly.
yeah,
I think that finally people in places that can make, widespread decisions for society are starting to really see and open up, to these ideas. And hopefully in the next few years we'll really start to see more of this stuff mainstream.
right. Yeah, I think so. And there's always like a lot of interesting research going on with psychedelics for things like PTSD, depression,
Oh yeah.
and you're a poster child for it. I mean, it's obviously helped you a lot.
So so many veterans need help, man. I work with a lot of guys in the special operations community, and especially those guys. Like I was in the special operations community when I was when I was working in the military, and just we like to go hard. We like to go all the way. We like to really test the boundaries, and eventually, the check comes due.
Yeah,
The human mind and the human body can only take so much. And also too, like these special ops guys, they have a really hard time asking for help. And so, if you're a former special ops guy, or even if you're still in the military, and you're resonating with any of this information, man, like hit me up. I'm more than happy to help.
yeah. If anyone listening knows somebody, um,
Yeah,
you're in a powerful position of like a bridge to people who might not be open to this information, but you've lived that life and you've gone far deep into the spiritual path that is also very respectable, and you've done a lot of deep work there. So yeah,
thank you, man. I
it's
appreciate that.
good work.
Thank you.
So yeah, people could check out your books on Amazon, right?
Yes, they're actually. I think the Indigo Flame is now on Amazon as well.
Yeah.
The Biohacker's Guide to Spiritual Bodybuilding is on there too. You can also go to my website. I have spiritualbodybuilder.com and also optimizinghuman.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
feel free to reach out, guys. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve.
yeah, awesome, man. It's an honor to speak with you today. So thanks for being here.
It's been an honor to connect with you too, brother. Thank you, man.